Okay, folks. Well, I've got a friend here from college. At least that's where I first ever got to know who Travis Thorne was. And I just talked him into coming by here and telling us a little bit about his cowboy perspective. So thanks for doing that, Travis.
Yeah, good morning, Dudley. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was college. You know, that our days at Texas Tech, that was a lot of fun. That's where we got to know each other. And that's the thing about, I guess, cowboy perspective is, we don't see each other very often, and that's probably been 25 years. And what I like is
did you have to say the number?
It's just reality, right?
Yeah,
it's
that's
just reality.
right.
But thinking about that,
you got gray on your head, I got gray on my head, and I think about it feels like just the other day, really.
It does.
We were in school.
It does. Time goes by so fast, and I just think what I really like about those relationships, like even at Tech, is we probably don't see each other but once every 3 or 4 years. But the good thing is it's just you just pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
It's just like old times.
Well, and you've got a common connection. You've got typically some kind of conversation starter about, well, did you see the basketball team lose? That's that. Just different. It's like that's one reason you go get involved in stuff. I mean, I almost think of college like getting involved.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I use every day from my college education.
Yeah.
Most of what I use every day come from parents, mentors, actual school of hard knocks, stuff I've learned like in the business world. Hey, you can loosen that little knob on top. There you go. Now you can twist that around a little bit.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, but you're coming through loud and clear, so you don't have that mic's getting you.
But exactly like you said, college is that opportunity to find yourself, so some individualism, but also to build that network of just friendships, and that just carries forward. And fortunately along the way you might get a diploma, but I don't think that's the end goal. The end goal is to learn who you are as an individual and grow up a little bit, and then just build a network of some people that you really enjoy being around. And I don't know how many times over the years that I found myself either working with those people or my kids show animals in 4-H and FA, and you find them back in the barn, and you just, it's that's the whole ag industry. It's just this big network, but it's so small and intimate at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. I love having this booth. By the way, we're at the Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers Convention. Anybody listening, you should come. It's a really cool thing. It's the first time I've ever thought about I've been doing the podcast for over 3 years, and it's the first time I've ever thought, man, I ought to just pay some money, have a booth, set up all the stuff, and talk to people. Like, that's what it's about. And now we're recording it so other people can kind of listen in and hear what we think.
No, that's exactly right. Just, and unfortunately I was walking by at the wrong time, so I became Neil's next victim. But I'm proud that he did, because again, it's just a chance to just visit, just
that's
talk,
right.
Have a meaningful conversation.
So as let's do that. So tell me a story or two. I told you, I gave you a little precursor, pre-warning. Hey, I want to hear a couple stories. To me, that's how we really pass knowledge down. It's how I've been passed knowledge from tons of people. They wouldn't always say, Neil, do this. But they'd say, well, this one time I got into this situation and this is how it went. So it doesn't have to be childhood, just your life. I mean, to me, your life is interesting. It really is. Like, you might have imposter syndrome and think it's not, but you've had success. You are in the game now. You're doing it. You're doing life with a family, with kids, with a job, and all this stuff. So that makes it valuable to everybody else. Tell me some stories from your life, one or two, that turned out to be valuable for you in your endeavors, whether it's trying to move up the ladder in business, trying to help your kids, trying to raise a family, all these things. You got anything?
Well, I a couple things, and the wheels are kind of turning a little bit, so you kind of think as you're visiting, I was kind of thinking a couple things. And, one thing that I've heard time and time again is about being prompt to stuff, and I think the saying is, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
And if you really think about that, that's a pretty profound statement, because it's just it's a way of showing that you care, right? You care about your image to other people, and that and I think that's pretty important just in life, but also in work. I think you're sending a message that, hey, I'm vested, right? I'm part of this deal, whether it be with your family, whether it be in your occupation, your job. That's one saying that I've always tried to live by, and the other one is presence is the present. And I think what you mean by that, and I think if you think about that, presence is the present, that also holds true whether...
Why are you saying that? Because that makes me want to cry, because I'm not always present with my kids. My brain is somewhere else.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And unfortunately, I work for Capital Firm Credit, and I'm in a leadership role, and that's one thing I try to preach is, you got to put yourself in the environment of your employees. You got to put yourself in the environment of your producers, your customers, and it changes the entire outcome of that relationship. When you go to them, whether it be your customers, your farmers, your ranchers, whether you go to something of your child's, their school, their sporting event, their livestock show, whatever, it changes the dynamics of that relationship. And so, presence is the present, and that's hard. We live in a world, we're very busy, we're preoccupied with electronics and workload, right? We're busier than we ever have been, but I think it's so important to just remind yourself that, hey, when I'm with my kid, or I'm with my spouse, I'm with employee or customer, like, make them the most important thing that's happening at that moment in time. And I kind of got off track a little bit of what you asked of me, but I thought it was important to kind of...
That's not off track. It's right on track.
Yeah.
It's one reason to do the podcast for me.
Yeah.
You're reminding me.
Yeah.
Be present. I have a hard time with that. I go to pretty much everything my kids do. I'm there, and that's a step in the right direction, but am I really there? That is a bigger challenge. It's a bigger, it's a more valuable thing if you just get really there. I got off of social media for the whole first quarter of this year. I just took it off. I put it off yeah, you can pull that up. That one, when you extend that arm, it wants to sink. So there you go. Anyway, I just took it off the home page of my phone. I'm trying to stay off of it. Now, am I like 100% abstaining from social media? No.
Yeah.
I sometimes will dig it back into the apps and go check it out and spend some time scrolling. Wasted time, basically. Although social media is a super valuable tool, so I'm trying to find this balance.
Yeah.
But that does prevent me from being present at times. And
yeah, it's a distraction, and there's a lot of good to it. I've got friends spread out all over the United States, and man, it's a great way to, I'm thinking about Facebook, great way to keep up with the happenings in their life, their children and things they got going, and so that's really enjoyable. But I mean, even when you're sitting there at church, it's real easy for your mind to wander, right? But if you could be present and focus on that message, because the goal is when you leave church, you want to remember what that message was, because it's going to guide you through that coming week. Like you're going to probably need something that was mentioned at church that day to get you through a trial or tribulation in that coming week. And so if you're not paying attention, you might miss something that God wants you to hear to help you get through that.
Could be really valuable to you.
Yeah.
All right, so you're in a leadership role for those people who either are in the job market or coming out of college or in high school. What's the quickest way to get hired by you, or to get promoted by you, or to get given a raise? How do you think about that? Well, you mentioned it a little bit, like show up early and this kind of thing. Is there anything else that we could dive a little deeper into?
I think character. is huge. Work ethic, integrity, and what's funny is
time out though. what the hell is that stuff? Okay, you're saying it, but what is it? Like, how do I show you I have character, I have integrity, I have work ethic? Like, what's an example?
Well, that's a really great question, and probably a challenging question at the same time. But if you think
Well,
about
hell
it,
yeah, you're in the hot sheet. You're in the hot seat.
yeah, let's go. If you really think about it, sometimes it's how other people see you, right? I mean, the thing is when you're trustworthy and you demonstrate integrity and work ethic, sometimes it's how you're perceived in terms of your coworkers. And so we use a lot of peer evaluation stuff, because it's one thing for me to feel a way about you or what I see, but how are you when I'm not around, right? How are you when the boss is maybe not around? Like, what does your coworkers think about you? Because that is so valuable. If you have we always try to say that if you can build a personal relationship with your coworkers, it's going to make for a stronger professional relationship. And so, to me, what other people think of you is as important, if not more, than how I feel about you. Because you can dress up and show off a little bit when the bosses are in town or the leader in town, but how are you when you have boots on the ground and you're in the trenches and you're really working along with your team? Are they seeing you in that same light? And I think it's just the way you behave, the way you shake people's hands, the way you look them in the eye, the way you smile and tell people yes sir and thank you and yes ma'am. Man, it's just the way you conduct yourself.
Yeah.
And
it's a presence. You can feel it when people have those characteristics.
Yeah.
You said it. This is what I heard. You didn't say these exact words, but I think you'd agree with it. It is, what do you do when nobody's watching?
That's right.
That is your character. That's your integrity. Okay, so what's an example of work ethic, though? I mean, that's a little more tangible thing.
That's when you're willing to do, not willing, that's when you do the things that no one else is willing to do or wanting to do. You know, it's everybody's got a job description and they kind of understand what their job is, but what do you do to bridge that gap and help other people accomplish their task also? So it's that going above and beyond. And, you know, all the stuff we're talking about, I think about that cowboy perspective, right? That's something that's just carried forward for so long, is that, you know, people are willing to step in and help their fellow brothers and sisters out, right? It's just you're being neighborly, right? It's just, hey, I may not feel like I have time for this, but I'm willing to sacrifice my time for someone else.
What's your most valuable asset? Time. I mean, and that parlays to network and some of the other stuff we've touched on, but time is a thing you're spending every second, and you don't get any more of it. We're already spending into the savings, and there's no way to add. You know, But I guess you could maybe think about trying to work out, stay healthy, and that helps you.
You know, you're talking about that neighborly and you know, maybe taking away time that you have to give to someone else. And you'd asked me early on about a couple of stories, and I've got two people in my life that are pretty special. My dad and my father-in-law. Yeah. And I see both of them in a similar light in terms of their character and their willingness to inconvenience themselves for the betterment of someone else. Mm-hmm. You know, and both of them are cowboys, and that's just who they see themselves as, you know, and conduct themselves. My dad, you know, growing up, he was my mentor, my hero, and he just, you know, he worked so hard to provide for his family. And, man, that's so honorable, you know, if you think about it. And I can remember a story. We had my sister and I went to Texas Tech, and we were my parents decided they were ready to get to Texas. They were done with New Mexico and ready to make that transition in their life. And we lived in a double wide house, and we were having to try to prepare that place to sell. And my dad and I went from Texas back over there together to do that work. And this would have been in the winter of '96, and New Mexico can have some inclement weather, and it just so happened that happened while we were there doing this, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. We kind of we got to a point where we had to do some work under that house, and you can imagine over the years, stuff silts in, and it's not maybe the way it looked initially, and so we kind of got down there together, and we're somewhat looking under the house and sort of contemplating the dilemma that was in front of us. Well, I weighed about half of what my dad was and quite a bit skinnier. And even though we were contemplating it, I had already knew that I was going to be the one that was going to be shimmying around under that house. And you can imagine the thoughts going through my mind, spiders and snakes and whatever creatures might be under there, I was going to have to face. And as probable as fearful as I was about doing that, claustrophobic, getting stuck. I mean, you can just imagine all the things going through your mind. I knew that my dad was not going to let me fail. Like, he was going to take care of me, right?
Yep.
Like, he was going to do whatever he had to make certain that I was taken care of while I was helping him out. And just the fact that I had that level of trust in him made the whole deal so great. And we got the task done, and we got it done together as a team, right?
Yeah.
And that was a special memory.
Yeah, and it parallels our spiritual relationship, I think. If
Yes,
you
sir.
trust in Jesus, God, you can kind of go into some pretty scary, hairy situations with understanding, like, hey, they'll take care of you. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that. I want my kids to trust me like that. I don't know if they do, but I want them to. I want to display to them a man. Hey, Dad's got me.
Yeah.
And ain't nobody can get Dad because he's on this kind of level. Now, that's not necessarily true, but that's how you feel as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
hey, man. I remember one time Dad was going around inviting people to church or something, and kind of in neighborhoods that were a little scary. And I told him something like, hey, I want to go with you. And because I was scared he was going to get shot walking up to somebody's house.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're just walking up to random people's houses? What? Are you crazy? And he's like, why would you think that's going to happen to me? And if you think that's going to happen, why would you want to go? And I was like, well, if they shoot you, I want them to shoot me too. It's
You're
like,
going down,
that's
I'm going
how
down.
important you are to me. It's one of those things that gets emotional. You got a little emotional thinking about your dad, your father-in-law, and what they mean to you. I love that. That's what life is.
That is life.
Having that kind of feeling about someone in your life, and you don't get it with everybody.
Mm-mm.
You get it with a certain special group.
Yeah.
Don't lose track of that, because that is a really awesome piece of our experience. And yeah, okay, cool. It makes you emotional. It makes you want to cry and these kind of things. But I think to me, that's a man too.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's important to me.
Yeah. Well, and that was, we kind of got talking about this based on time and giving up your time to as a sacrifice for someone else. And I guess the other thing I was thinking about my father-in-law is I don't know how many we live on kind of he's a third generation rancher. We kind of live on a busy highway, and so there's things from time to time that happen on that highway, and I don't know how many times on a Sunday morning someone would get a flat tire and they're sitting over there parked on the side of the highway, and he's already dressed and we're headed to church, and he will sacrifice his time going to church to go back to the shop and get whatever he needs, even though he's in his dress attire, to help someone with that flat tire, to help them get back on their path, right?
Yeah.
Help them get back on their path, knowing that he might miss church or be late to church. And I can share all kinds of stories about him acting in that kind of way, and that's so admirable. I've always just thought, man, that's like going out of your way to help other people where it might inconvenience you. That's a special person.
Yeah.
And my dad and my father-in-law, I don't know how many times I've seen them do whatever they possibly can for someone else.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of man I want to be.
Yeah. I've experienced guys and gals like that. Like I mean, we went snow skiing a couple years ago, and me and my middle daughter kind of got stranded in town at a grocery store because my wife and the other kids had went back to their Airbnb, and we stayed and skied, but we caught a bus. So anyways, we're stranded, and it's a snowstorm. We're just standing in this grocery store and saying, hey, will you give me a ride? No, I'm busy. Hey, would you give me a ride? And a lady just kind of saw us and came over and said, hey, are y'all needing some help? And we're like, yeah, we need some help. I mean, so it's hard to ask. It's a little embarrassing to be standing there asking for help.
Yeah.
She threw us in her car, took us home. It was like out of her way. It wasn't the way she was going, and it's a snowstorm. I mean, so that kind of added another level to me. It's a snowstorm. She may take us and not be able to get back to wherever her house is because, I don't know, you get snowed out. Like, she was taking a risk doing that. So I've experienced it. That makes me want to try to help. The other day I passed somebody pulled over on the highway, and I'm like, you know, the old conscience is saying, hey, you going to just do that? Just pass them? They could need help. So I turned around, go pull up behind him. The guy jumps out and starts like waving his finger. You get out of here. We don't need, you know, that's a sad thing in my, that we're scared of each other that way.
Yeah, I thought about that while you were telling that story, that it is sad that our society has got to where we're less trustworthy. And I think it's just because of so many things that happen. You know, you do have your guard up, but you know, living in rural areas and living, you know, in country areas, more remote areas, I still think that trust exist. I think that, and I think that's you know, that's kind of how we were raised, and then even some of that, even like, and I can think of times where I've passed someone and I was on a mission, I was trying to get to somewhere, and all I needed was to take an extra thought, and I pulled over, turned around, helped that individual, and you know what, like, you don't do it for yourself, but man, it makes you feel good. It gives you that real feel good, like, man, I hope God appreciates me helping someone.
Yeah.
And I hope that if I'm in that position, someone would pay it forward and help me as well.
It feels good to do things for others.
Feels good to do good.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
So do that, folks. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're listening, you do, but I'm encouraging you to do it again. Like, sometime or another, maybe you've had a good month at work and you got an extra $100 bill in your pocket. Pay for those groceries for that person in front of you. Just stuff like that.
Oh,
I mean, it doesn't have to always be money, but I promise you, it'll feel good. It'll be a good $100 spent because they get something, you get something. And also, represent the cowboy and the men in this world well. Like, I want people, when they get done interacting with me, to say, cowboys are good people. You know, people from rural America are good people. People in the farming and ranching industry are good people. I don't really agree with everything that guy says or believes in, but he's a good person, you know. So I think we got to represent our culture that way to the rest of the world, because sometimes some of this stuff, we're the only ones still holding on to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That cowboy hat's an emblem of some very important things, right? And a lot of history from our ancestors. And just like I said, if you're wearing that cowboy hat, you want people to say that guy has a big heart, and he's trustworthy, and he demonstrates integrity, and I want to be around people like that.
Yeah. If I'm in the shit, I hope he's here too. You know, we're gonna get through it. Travis, thanks for coming. Thanks for telling those stories. Big shout out to, what's your dad's name? What's your father-in-law's name?
My dad, Tommy Thorne, and my father-in-law, Ken Clayton.
All right, man. You know, high five to those guys. I appreciate, you know, the example they set for you, so you can carry it on for others, and I'm sure a lot of other people, not just you. I mean, so great job, fellas. Really appreciate you, and thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Neil. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks.